Good evening, and thank you for attending. My name is Deborah Exner, and I will be the moderator for this evening's candidate debate. Joining me is Ms. Gina Roberts from the Arizona Clean Elections Commission. The Citizens Clean Election Commission is the sponsor for this evening's event. The Clean Elections Act is a campaign finance reform measure initiated by Arizona citizens and passed by voters in 1998. Participation as a clean elections candidate is strictly voluntary. The system provides full funding for qualified candidates who agree to abide by the Clean Elections Rules and Act. To qualify for funding, participating candidates must illustrate the support of their constituents by gathering $5 qualifying contributions from registered voters in their legislative district. The candidates agree to adhere to contribution and spending limits and may not accept money from special interest groups. They also agree to participate in these debates. As we move into the debate, we encourage audience questions. If you have questions, please print them clearly on the card given to you when you walked in and hold it up. One of our volunteers will collect the cards and bring them to me. We screen questions for clarity, to eliminate duplications, speeches, or personal attacks on candidates. If you need another card, just raise your hand. The debate is scheduled for 1 hour, so we may not get to all of the questions, but we will do our best. There is an independent timer who will see that all candidates have equal time to answer questions and will tell them when their time is up. Our format this evening will be opening statements for 3 minutes, a quick lightning round, 2 minutes to answer audience questions, 2 minutes to answer candidate-to-candidate questions, and closing statements for 3 minutes. We ask that you remain polite to all of the candidates and give them a fair and uninterrupted hearing, no matter how strongly you may agree or disagree with anything being said. This means no applause, no outbursts or cheers, except now as we introduce the candidates. This is especially important as closed captioning services will be made available after this debate for individuals that are hearing impaired. As such, I will refer to each candidate by their full name prior to each question and ask that the candidates speak clearly into their microphone. Tonight, we have Ms. Kelli Butler, Democrat, running for state senator and a clean elections participant. And Mr. James Iannuzo, Libertarian, running for state senate. And Dr. Eric Meyer, Democrat, running for state representative. I'm told that the opening will be 2 minutes. The order in which the candidates will speak has been determined by alphabetical order by last name, starting with the Senate, and will progress from that starting point. The closing order will be determined by reverse alphabetical order by last name. So Ms. Kelli Butler, will you start with the opening remarks for 2 minutes, please?
Thank you. I'm Kelli Butler, candidate for the state Senate, and I want to thank the Clean Elections Commission for organizing this forum tonight, and thank you all for being here. I never thought I would be running for public office, but I could not continue to sit on the sidelines and watch what's happening to our state, especially the divisive partisanship that I think has taken over too much lately. We've got some real problems. Our public schools are in crisis. 1 in 4 children are living in poverty in Arizona. And our economic recovery is slower than it should be. These are serious problems, and we need leaders who are going to look for bipartisan, sensible solutions to those problems. I love Arizona. I'm a native Arizonan. I grew up here within the boundaries of District 28. I actually went to Cocopon Chaparral. I went to U of A and studied elementary education. I have been married for 25 years to my husband, Ben, and he's a general dentist practicing in Glendale. I work in his office, so I manage our practice and I help run our small business. And so, like any small business owner, I wear a lot of hats. I'm pretty much the HR department. I manage our regulatory compliance, and I oversee our insurance contracts and reimbursement. So I have a broad range of experience running a business in the healthcare industry, and I know that experience is going to help me down at the Capitol. And since I'm my own boss, I've had the opportunity over the years to volunteer in my kids' schools. And I was always on campus. Starting in their preschool, I was on their preschool board of directors. And then I was the PTA president, and I was on the site-based management team. I was on the Madison School District's executive board. The Madison School District's Education Committee's executive board, sorry. But I saw those cuts to our education firsthand, and I saw what was happening in our schools, and I knew it was wrong. We have huge class sizes. We have teachers leaving the profession. And I got involved with politics to try to change that. That's why I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. James Iannuzo.
Thank you, and good evening. My name is Jim Iannuzo, and I'm the Libertarian candidate for Arizona State Senate in District 28. And surprisingly enough, I thought there would be some other candidates here tonight. I'm the only non-participating candidate, which essentially means that I'm not taking any subsidy to run my campaign. I believe money and politics, especially when the state funds politics, is really a bad thing. Politics should be grassroots. It should be citizens like you guys coming out tonight, asking me questions, making statements, and having a civil debate about issues. But it seems like it's not that way. So I do thank Clean Elections for holding this, because this is really the only opportunity that we get to actually come out and have a debate. And some of the candidates don't show up. I just don't understand that. One thing I want to mention is freedom is not a buffet. And what I mean by that is, as a libertarian, I believe in freedom when it comes to both personal issues and economic issues. And that means you have a right to your privacy. I'm not your master. I'm not going to peep in your bedroom. You have a right to the fruits of your labor. You exchange your time, which is essentially your life, to make money, to buy things for your family, buy things for your kids, to go on vacation. And I'm not here to take that away from you. What I'm here for, and the reason I'm running, is to make sure the government does the one thing that it should do, and that's ensure your individual rights, so that your neighbor doesn't have a right to initiate force against you. You own yourself. The government doesn't have a right to initiate force against you. I want to keep the government out of your bedroom. I want to keep the government out of your wallet. We as citizens can come together and fix the issues that need to be fixed. And that's a civil society. That's the type of society that really fixes issues, that really makes a difference in education, that really makes a difference in poverty, not government programs where there's some politician making the rules. Thank you.
Thank you. And Dr. Eric Meyer, please.
Hi, everybody. Eric Meyer. Thanks for coming this evening. I grew up here, have an undergraduate degree in economics, and then went off to medical school at U of A and trained in emergency medicine. I met my wife there, and the two of us did the couples match and moved to Portland, Oregon. She also went to Hopi and Arcadia here in town. After moving to Oregon, she trained as an obstetrician, and I trained in emergency medicine. I went into practice in Oregon and became the director of Providence Medical Center, where I worked for a number of years, and before I left, we saw about 60,000 patient visits a year. I couldn't take the clouds anymore in Oregon, so I moved back home to Arizona. At that time, we had our 2 kids, and I started by getting involved in education-related issues. When I took my kids to school, I found out that here in Arizona, we don't fund our schools adequately. Ended up getting involved with the group called Scottsdale Parent Council. I became their legislative liaison and went down to the Capitol and began to talk to our legislators about the problems we faced in our districts across the state. Then I ran for school board in Scottsdale. I served on the Scottsdale School Board for 8 years. But after serving my first term on the school board, I ran as a write-in candidate in the primary for the House seat and was elected after getting enough write-in votes, and then I've been serving at the Capitol for the last 6 years. Big issues for me are education, particularly education funding as it relates to preparing our children for college and the workforce, and then job creation. I've served on both the House Health, Education, Transportation, and Government Committee over the 6 years that I've been down at the Capitol, and it's been a pleasure to serve.
Thank you. In an attempt to lighten the mood, for tonight's debate. We're going to do a quick lightning round of this or that. This will allow us to get to know the candidates a little bit more, and please answer with just one word. Mr. James Iannuzo.
Could you repeat that? Because unfortunately, I was talking to one of my friends here. So.
It's a lightning round, answer with just one word, and your question is Droid or iPhone or Windows?
Secure Android.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Meyer, CNN, Fox News, or MSNBC?
I don't watch TV. I don't have any of those shows at home, so I haven't watched them.
Okay. All right. Ms. Kelli Butler, Facebook or Twitter?
Facebook.
Okay. And now we'll move into the audience questions. What are our most important state issues? How would you rank education, budget, infrastructure, healthcare, and border safety? And we'll start this round with Dr. Eric Meyer, please.
And I have how long? 2. Well, that's tough because every one of those issues is intertwined. So the budget in particular relates to education and healthcare and border security and everything that we do at the state level. Where we have failed our kids is in investing in education and in healthcare. We're the only state in the country to cut kids' care a number of years ago that provided healthcare to 47,000 kids in our state. And we continue to underfund our schools in the state. Over the past 6 years, while I've been down at the legislature, we've made over $4 billion in cuts to our schools. We've also underfunded our universities at the same time. We now have the highest tuitions of any state in the country when it comes to college tuition. And if we want to attract businesses to our state, we need to have an educated workforce. Our dropout rate now is the highest in the country. Of 100 kids who start high school in our state, only 7 will end up graduating from a 4-year institution after 6 years. So we're definitely not preparing our kids for college in the workforce when 90% of the jobs that we create in our state are going to require some post-secondary education. We have to change that. When we look at class sizes in our state, they're also the largest in the country. At the middle and high school level now, teachers are seeing 35 or 40 kids per class. That means over the course of a day, they'll have 180 to 200 kids coming through their classrooms, and that's absolutely no way to prepare our kids for college and the workforce. When I was on the school board, I'll just stop. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Kelli Butler.
Oh, I didn't know I'd be next. Well, all of those are huge issues for our state, and I'm concerned about all of them. It's hard to rank them, but it is true. I mean, our budget is the biggest problem because we don't have enough money to do what we need to do. And the first thing that we need to do is fund our schools. I think that we're in a cycle where we're not funding our schools, so businesses aren't moving here because they know we don't have good schools. And then we're not increasing our revenues because businesses aren't moving here. So it's a cycle that we need to get out of. In fact, a few years ago, Craig Barrett said that if he had to do it today, he wouldn't move Intel to our state because of our schools. And so it's costing us dearly, not just in our economic recovery, but obviously in our students who can't lose years in huge classes. And we've got to get a handle on school funding right now. Our infrastructure, we're not doing what we need to do to repair our infrastructure. We've rated our HERF funds every year since 2001. I think we've rated hundreds of millions of HERF funds, and now I read that we have the 8th deadliest rural roads in the nation. So these things have consequences, and we need to invest wisely. Obviously, we need to come together and compromise and find the best uses, the highest uses for our funds. Our funds are precious, and we can't waste money on anything right now. We need to be careful. Healthcare, obviously, the Medicaid expansion was the right thing to do, and it brings our federal tax dollars back to our state, which has been a really important decision that we're seeing the benefits of today. I think that pretty much sums it up. I think we need some shared investment, and we need careful, thoughtful consideration to how we're going to invest our money. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. James Iannuzo.
Before I answer that question, I just want to mention, because I didn't have time in the opening remarks, I've lived in Arizona for 25 years. I have a wife and a daughter. I also own a business like Kelly, and I have a degree in electrical engineering. The most important issue really facing, I think, any state, not just Arizona, is to define what's the proper role of the state. A lot of issues are becoming federalized. And so what's happening is that power is moving away from normal people who can get together in a room like this and discuss the issues to some place where basically you visit maybe once every couple of years. It's difficult to get an appointment to see your congressman or your U.S. senator. A lot easier to get an appointment to see your state representative. So I think the biggest issue facing any state is to define that proper role of government. And as a libertarian, as I said, it's basically ensuring individual rights so that you can go out and be creative, your children can go out and be creative. Education is just one permutation of that. Good education provides opportunity for kids. Education is not about systems, it's about learning. And if we get back to the basics and we understand it's about learning and opportunities for children, then we're going to be much better off as a state. But that all comes from that basic discussion. What's the proper role of government? Is it the proper role of government to spend a lot of money on education, or is it a parent's responsibility to make sure that their children are educated? And I think it's a parent's responsibility. The parents have to be prime in that decision. The parents have to be involved, and when that doesn't happen, education, doesn't matter how much you spend, it doesn't have the results. We've been having this discussion on education for years, and it's not getting better. And it's not getting better because of a fundamental flaw in the discussion, and that's the proper role of the state, and it's not supplanting parents in education.
Thank you. What is your plan to create quality, well-paying jobs in Arizona? And we'll start with Ms. Kelli Butler.
Well, I said a little bit before, but I think that quality, well-paying jobs are going to move here when we have the workforce to fill those positions. And too often, we have seen these cuts to education. We are at the bottom nationally in funding, and everyone knows it. In fact, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce just gave us a D rating for student achievement. Everyone sees that, and everyone knows it, and we need to do better, and we can. We have to invest in our workforce. We need to start early. We've got an achievement gap that starts really early. Only 67% of our students in Arizona don't attend preschool. And so when they start in kindergarten, they're already at a deficit based compared to the other kids. So we need to improve all of these things all along the way so that we can tell businesses that we have what they need here, that we have quality schools for their employees, and that we have a quality workforce. We've cut funding for career and technical education training so that people aren't getting out with certified to do jobs. We are not graduating enough people from our high schools who are ready for college. We need to fix that, and when we do, we will be able to attract more jobs to our state.
Thank you. Mr. James Iannuzo.
One of the things about creating jobs is that's something that businesses do. And my argument with Republicans normally goes this way. Republicans like to dole out special carve-outs and favors for certain businesses to attract them to the state, which is wrong. I worked as a semiconductor design engineer. Intel's here, Motorola was here, Microchip is here. There's a lot of high-tech companies that are in Arizona. And it's not primarily because we had a better educational system in Arizona. It's people wanted to move to Arizona. I mean, it was a nice place to move to compared to a lot of other places. So it attracted the business in. Was the business climate maybe favorable over some other states? Yes. But government can put an impediment in the way, or government can get out of the way and let businesses come here. When I recruited at many colleges for engineers. When I recruited, and this was back east, when I lived back east, I didn't recruit from the state I lived in, which was Massachusetts. I recruited from the universities that provided the talent that I needed. And that could be anywhere in the United States. So yes, education is important, but what attracts business is a good business climate. So what a politician can do is say, I'm not going to get in the way to create a bad business climate. as some states have done, and then businesses move out of those states and move to other places. I think Arizona overall is not a bad business climate. There's things we can do to make it better for business. But again, not crony capitalism, not favors for special groups, but basically not picking winners and losers and let the marketplace pick.
Thank you. Dr. Eric Meyer.
Thank you. And I agree to some degree. You know, if we want to attract businesses to our state, we have to create the appropriate climate here. Part of that does relate to education, because there's businesses that we can't get to move here because we don't have schools to put their kids in. And we don't have enough qualified employees to fill the jobs that they would be creating. When we're only graduating 7 out of 100 of our children that enter our high school system, and at this point we're importing engineers from other countries because we can't fill the jobs, we have the ability to change that as a state government. We can also streamline, and we have worked at that to some degree at the state capitol, in how easy it is to start a business in Arizona. It, in some cases, takes far too long, and we lose businesses to other states because we, as a state, don't provide those opportunities to businesses willing to move here. I'm going to disagree just a little bit in that we give tax cuts to businesses in our state. Some of them are targeted, some of them are not. The targeted tax cuts, we know jobs are created here. We can pass bills that require certain wage levels, certain types of jobs, healthcare benefits, or we can just try and attract any business here. And if you look at the businesses we've attracted recently, they tend to be lower paying jobs. People in our state, and Arizona is one of the only states that hasn't recovered back to the income level we were at before the recession. And that's because we aren't able to attract those high-tech, high-wage jobs to our state. So you're going to hold up the stop sign. Okay, I'll just stop. So thank you.
Thank you. The next question is, what is your view on the retroactive inflation funding for education? And we'll start this one with Mr. James Iannuzo.
Well, that was due to a ballot proposition in the year 2000, and the state has an obligation at this point to actually live up to what the ballot proposition said. That said, I think this is one of those things which could seriously bankrupt the state. Currently, the state has about a $60+ billion deficit, about $9,000 per person. This is something that could bankrupt the state. And it kind of, since we're still on education, let me relate that to something that I see in education. It's not really just about the money. I mean, Arizona spends a lot less money than other states. We spend about $7,000, $8,000 per student. New York spends about $17,000, state I grew up in. Math test scores are about the same, roughly the same. I know a lot of teachers in New York, a lot of my relatives are teachers. The results aren't there because there's not really that buy-in. It's like, what do I get for my education? In Arizona, we have a state science fair every year. Most people don't know about it. Intel puts it on. A lot of companies sponsor it. Using gentle persuasion, I persuaded my daughter to enter a couple years, and I was surprised at how few kids actually enter it. And the keynote address from the executive at Intel said, "You are the students we're looking to hire." Well, why weren't more students there? I didn't understand it. And it's a pet peeve of mine, being an engineer, that math and science and technology and chemistry and physics and biology are the careers of the future. And if you don't have an interest in learning it because you don't think there's any, outcome to it, you won't do it. And the state science fair is a perfect opportunity for students and parents to say, I want to participate in that and achieve something from it. But again, it's not just about money, it's about taking advantage of options that you have.
Thank you. Dr. Eric Meyer.
So, as has been pointed out, the state has an obligation, a voter-approved obligation to fund that $317 million a year. Right now, we do have the money in the rainy day fund to fund that. Moving forward, it will be a challenge in the budget to find those dollars, but it can be done. Our caucus every year puts together a budget, and we did it again this year, even though it has little hope of ever being adopted by anyone. But it's been over $200 million more dollars than the budget that was passed, but no more overall than the governor would have spent. So it wasn't like we were rank at the bank. So just by the choices that we make as legislators in what we choose to spend our dollars on, we could change what we invest in. And it does make a difference in the classroom, because I agree that the jobs that we're creating require a degree in physics and engineering and math. But in order to provide the lab space, the buildings, and the technology in the classroom, that does cost something. So we have to, in my mind, stop taking that case back to court and appealing it and wasting more of our taxpayer dollars, and just do what the voters have asked us to do, and that's fund inflation so we don't continue to fall further behind. So in the 8 years that I was on the school board, only in one of those years did I not have to make cuts. In the first year that I was in the legislature and on the school board, we passed the budget down at the legislature, and then I had to go implement the cuts in the school district. So in that year, I laid off 311 teachers and 40% of all our administrators. We didn't invest in our infrastructure, our buildings, or our technology that year, and it is a challenge for our teachers in the classroom.
Thank you.
Under those circumstances.
Ms. Kelli Butler.
Thank you. You know what? I think it's just outrageous that we haven't funded the voter-mandated and now court-mandated inflation funding for our schools. We have got to fund that immediately so that our schools can plan appropriately. And again, I don't understand why we're always willing to pay lawyers instead of our teachers. We have to fund our schools, and we need to do it now and stop subverting the will of the voters. We've got to make sure that that money gets into our classrooms so that it reduces class sizes and helps our teachers. I have a teacher who's a friend and retired last year. She was a great teacher, but she couldn't teach to the 40 kids in her class. She had a huge spectrum of ability in that class, and she was a great teacher, but didn't feel like she was able to do enough for those students because there were so many. And we can help and we can alleviate some of that problem if we will just fund this inflation funding that, again, voters and the courts have mandated. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question is, what would you do to help implement the new Department of Child Safety and Family Services? And we'll start with Dr. Eric Meyer.
Thank you. I was there in special session and voted on this bill, and actually was involved in the negotiations and spent some time up in the governor's office advocating for more preventative measures that keep kids out of the system. We know research-based evidence that if we identify the kids that are particularly at risk for abuse and neglect early and intervene, we can save dollars in the long run, and it's better for those kids. The problem is we have cut all those preventative programs that keep kids out of the system, and we have understaffed the department now chronically for years. So in other states where they're seeing numbers drop on the kids that are entering the Child Protective Services system and or foster care, we've seen those numbers continue to grow. And now we have over 15,000 children in foster care. I had a kid come into my office during session who was 22, and during the 10 years that he was in the foster care system, he had lived in 50 different homes. And he was a remarkable young man, and he was successful in going to community college, but that isn't true for everyone that enters the system. So, in my mind, we need to change the way we're running the department and invest in preventative programs that prevent kids from being abused and neglected, and assure that every child in our state is safe.
Thank you. Ms. Kelli Butler.
Well, child safety is a huge, obviously, issue for most of us, and it was awful to see the reports coming out of the old CPS of 6,500 cases that were totally uninvestigated. Again, just unacceptable and egregious, and it shouldn't have happened. So I was really thrilled to see finally some bipartisan efforts last year to approve the new Department of Child Safety. That was a great step in the right direction, and a hopeful step in the right direction. But Arizona still, as Dr. Meyer said, we still are underfunding the things that will keep our children out of the system in the first place. We are one of the very few states, I think we're one of 2 states, that have a growing population of kids in foster care. We need to make sure that we're providing resources to families that help keep those children in their homes instead of in foster care. We know that's a less expensive option and an option often with better outcomes. So important and a step in the right direction. Just nothing's more important than child safety, and I was glad to see that we're moving in that direction. So thanks.
Thank you. Mr. James Iannuzo.
One of the core differences in my discussion on this would be that I just don't think throwing money at a problem solves the problem. This is a mindset problem. A fundamental core principle of libertarianism, which is actually the philosophy of liberty. A libertarian, large L, means a political figure, but a small l is a philosophy. It's kind of like Jeffersonian type democracy. It's built over the study of a long time of individual rights, and I don't really differentiate between force used against an elderly person or a child. They're both wrong. Force used against anyone is wrong, but it's a mindset. So you can have a program, you could have a group, you could have a department, and what you've created is a jobs program, essentially. Yes, we'll on the periphery, we'll get a little better, of course. But the question is, and again, this gets back to what I've talked about tonight, the proper role of government. The question is there a better way to do it? And I believe there is, and that's changing mindsets. That's basically coming out and saying the initiation of force is never okay against anyone. I don't care who it is. By government, by group, by individual, it's always wrong. You don't have a right to punch your neighbor in the nose. You don't have a right. And that's simply how it has to be, but it has to be a change in mindset, because when people accept something fundamentally as a truth, then the problem goes away. But if it's just throwing some money at it and having a department, now we get into, yeah, maybe it changes things a little bit, but it's always the problem. It's like the war on drugs or the war on poverty. It just never goes away. So throw more money at it and maybe it'll get fixed. Maybe it's just tweaking the dials a little bit. No, I don't believe that. I believe it's a fundamental mindset, and everyone in the community has a responsibility to make that part of the calculus, to make that part of the discussion, because that's how you change things.
Thank you. The next question is, what is the best thing to do that the state could do to foster a more positive image of Arizona, both nationally and internationally? And we'll begin with Ms. Kelli, with Ms. Kelli Butler.
Well, this is a big problem. I mean, how many of us have traveled somewhere? I was in London, and someone said, "Oh, you're from Arizona. Don't you guys have that sheriff?" Yeah. We do. We need to let people know that our state is a beautiful place full of really wonderful people, and just too often we see this nonsense that just gives us a black eye, and we have got to stop doing that. We have to focus on solutions to our problems and not creating more problems. This last session we saw SB 1062. That's just outrageous. That was the bill that was going to allow people to discriminate based upon their religious beliefs. And my opponent's not here to answer for his vote, but I have to bring this up because he voted for that bill. And then after the backlash happened that we all expected, after Apple and American Airlines and the Super Bowl were all threatening to boycott Arizona once again, then he asked the governor, he asked for a veto. That's not leadership, and we should expect more every single time that happens, and we make the headlines and we make the late night talk shows and we're laughed at. It hurts our state. And we all know that we're better than that. That those aren't our priorities, and I know that we can do better than that. We can just stop being the butt of jokes and stop the divisive politics.
Thank you. Mr. James Iannuzo.
There's nothing really a politician can do. I mean, yeah, don't propose legislation that that sometimes is ridiculous. But think about it this way: you have a wide distribution of people. There's people that are going to say things. You're going to say people say things on the left, people say things on the right, people say things in the center, and you're not going to agree with everything people say. But as long as it's done in a civil way, I don't have a problem with it. I disagree with the people up here debating with me, but I'm not yelling, I'm not screaming. It's a civil debate. And that's what it really needs to come down to. It comes down to, can we be tolerant of other opinions and not belittle the other person who has that opinion? And I think, again, that takes people having a different mindset. It's too easy in the media to say, this guy's a wacko or this guy's a lunatic, and you publicize it and you get good ratings and you do more of it. So just don't participate in it. Say, no, I'm just not going to participate in that nonsense. And that's what it really comes down to.
Thank you. Dr. Eric Meyer.
And maybe we agree on more than you think, but when people introduce bills down at the Capitol, or the governor talks about things that discriminate against other groups of people or take away the rights that they have under the Constitution, then that becomes a problem. So 1062 was a perfect example of that. 1070 was a perfect example of that. 1062 would have allowed you to discriminate against people because of your own religious beliefs. 1070 would potentially have led to racial profiling, and many parts of that bill were found unconstitutional. So, and when legislators continue to introduce bills that do that take away women's rights, healthcare rights. In fact, we've done worse than that. We have put women's health at risk in Arizona because we don't allow them to get medically appropriate standard of care treatments in our state. We are legislating bad policy, discriminatory policy, unsafe policies, and it happens session after session after session. So I agree that we should be civil, and I am when I'm down at the Capitol talking to my colleagues, but the bills are still wrong. And if we continue to introduce them, Arizona will continue to make the late night TV shows and be the brunt of jokes rather than what our state should be, because it's a beautiful state. I love our state, and we have incredible opportunity if we just move down a different path.
Thank you. And, sorry. Okay, so our next question, we are going to talk about, do you support Common Core? Why or why not? And we'll start with Mr. James Iannuzo.
Okay, before I get to that, I just want to mention one last thing on the last question. You can't control what other people are going to think about you. You can control your actions. And I think as individuals, we just need to remember that. Yeah, somebody else might laugh at you, but it doesn't matter. Control your actions and be the mature person in that discussion. And I think you're always better off, and the state's always better off. No, I don't support Common Core. I think education is a local issue. I support metrics. I think testing is a good thing. But the problem is when those metrics get too far away from the community, the metrics might be different than what's needed. So for instance, if you go to certain states back east where it's a lot more industrial, the metrics might be somewhat different than if you go to a high-tech region, where you want the metrics to be more based on math and science rather than some other criteria. So I don't support it for that reason. I think, again, parents need to be involved in the educational process in order for it to succeed. I haven't seen many cases where the parents have decided not to be involved and the student succeeds. I've heard too many cases from my friends that are teachers where nobody shows up for parent-teacher conferences. Things like that I think Common Core will just remove that incentive further away from where the decisions need to be based. And I don't think educational decisions should be based on somebody's particular religious view or somebody's pet peeve. It needs to be based on what's good for the student. So the student can have opportunities. When they get out of school, they can decide, I want to go to college, I want to go into business, I want to go into healthcare, I want to go into finance. They have those opportunities because it's not about the system, it's about the student. and we have to put the focus back on the student.
Thank you. Dr. Eric Meyer.
So Common Core is standards in math, writing, and reading, writing, and arithmetic, that were established by our state in conjunction with our teachers, our universities, and our businesses. To set some standards so that when kids leave our K-12 system, they're prepared for college and the workforce. Our state board adopted those standards. We had standards in place before, and now that the standards have been adopted, local school districts, the local control issues or charter schools, can decide the curriculum they're going to use to meet those standards, and the teachers in the classroom can decide how they're going to teach so that every kid in their classroom, when they graduate from college, hopefully, or from high school, hopefully, will be prepared for college and the workforce. Common Core has now become incredibly politicized around that it's a national plan and there's all this loss of local control. So when I was on the school board, we adopted the Common Core standards, and then we locally adopted our curriculum, and then we let our teachers in the classroom decide how they're going to teach. We just expect our teachers in the classroom to move a kid a year's worth of growth every single year. And we also expect them to teach every kid to read, write, and do arithmetic. And most of our teachers are doing that. It is, again, a challenging environment to work in when you have that many kids in your classroom. But given the fact that most of the districts across the state have adopted the standards and we're moving forward on them, and kids appear to be doing well with the standards, I'm supportive.
Thank you. And Ms. Kelli Butler.
Well, I support the Common Core standards, and there is so much misinformation about the standards, and I talk to voters all the time, and so many people are concerned that this is somehow being imposed upon our students. Well, I also talked to teachers. I talked to a principal this weekend, and she said, we've been using these standards for years. These are standards they're just standards. It's not curriculum. It's just saying where our children need to be relative to other kids at the same time, so that we can move between schools and so that we can understand if they're, where they're meeting the goals that they need to meet. So it makes sense to me to have high standards. They're high standards. It's great because we need to make sure that our kids are ready for college and 21st century careers. I don't talk to very many teachers who are nervous about the standards themselves because they say they are using them already and that they're effective in their classrooms, the way that they're able to develop the curriculum themselves. What I am concerned about, like too many things in Arizona, is a lack of funding. Is that really a stop? Oh, I thought it was, I know I am. Thanks, sorry. Well, I'm concerned about the lack of funding because we saw a budget this last session that didn't fund as much as was needed to fund the new assessment, to fund the technology that's needed to use the assessment, and to fund teacher training and materials. Of course, that happens too often in Arizona, and I think that's a source of nervousness among teachers. But I don't find teachers that are very nervous about the standards themselves, just the implementation and the worry over that. Thanks.
Thank you. At this time, each of the candidates whose opponent is here will have the opportunity to ask a question of their opponent. The first question is from Ms. Kelli Butler for Mr. James Iannuzo.
Thank you. Mr. Iannuzo, why are you the best choice for conservative voters in our district?
I'm not the best choice for conservative voters. I'm the best choice for all voters. And the reason is because I incorporate, I believe, what Democrats typically have stood for in the past, though it's not always in practice, it doesn't always come out, and what Republicans have typically stood for, which is to make decision-making as local and as close to the individual as possible, to respect everyone as a human being. It doesn't matter what group you're in. You're a human being. You have to be respected. I don't differentiate between groups that are gay groups or straight groups, black or white. The way I look at it is we are all in this together, we're all humans. And I think I'm the best candidate because I remember that privacy issues are as important as economic issues. The freedom to keep what you make basically is your life. You exchange your time for work, and you get something in return for that. And you have a limited amount of time on this earth. And if I'm deciding how much of that time I'm going to take and how much of that money I'm going to take and what you can do and what you can't do, what I'm doing is I'm in charge of you. I'm basically your owner. So as I said initially, you don't have a right to initiate force against your neighbor, but I don't have a right either as a politician to initiate force by keeping you as sort of captive to my desires. I don't. I'm the best candidate because I understand both sides of that coin.
Thank you. The next question is from Mr. James Iannuzo for Ms. Kelli Butler.
Okay. Kelly, should government differentiate with program requirements among groups like Native Americans, GLBT, blacks?
Should government differentiate? Well, let me think. I guess my short answer would be no. I mean, I'm against discrimination in any form, and I think that we should, to the best of our ability, treat groups fairly. Do certain groups maybe need more assistance than others? Sure, and when that happens, I'm willing to sit down and figure out what that would involve and try to offer that assistance where it makes sense. With regard to the LGBT community, I think the government should stay out of people's private business, just like you do. Yeah, I think that the government walks a fine line when it gets involved in issues like that.
Thank you. And then to keep things fair with equal time, I will ask an audience question of Dr. Eric Meyer. How would you describe the constituents of Legislative District 28, and why do you consider yourself the person to represent them?
Good question. It's interesting. We have a great district. I've now served here for 6 years, and then on the school board, which covers part of it, for 8. And people are very well educated and concerned about what happens in their communities. And we have a whole bunch of different communities, whether it's the Biltmore area, the Sunny Slope area, that gather as a group to try to make things better for their community. And now this gets a little to your question. When I've been serving, I've reached out to my constituents because I need to know what's best for them to serve them. I've now, and with our volunteers, knocked on 40,000 doors in our district to find out what my constituents think, and I tell them what I think. If they don't think I'm the best to serve them, then they'll vote for somebody else. But in the past 3 election cycles, they have. I'm not running under the Clean Elections program. I'm running traditional, and I have to go out and talk to my constituents, and they have to give me money if they support me. And in doing that, they won't do that if I don't think they or I represent their views. So my opponents, running traditionally, we have the opportunity to invite them to come because I think what would be good for our community is for all of our voters to know exactly what they think. And unfortunately, neither of them showed up tonight. And Shauna hasn't shown up for a single, in fact, the only place I've ever seen her is in a coffee shop once. So I agree that she should come. She should tell the voters what she thinks, and that would be best for our democracy.
Thank you. We will now begin the closing statements, and the first closing statement will be given by Dr. Eric Meyer.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to serve the residents of District 28 down at the Capitol. My door has always been open, and my constituents come and visit with me frequently, both down at the Capitol and at the coffees that I hold around the district. I find them to be incredibly engaging and incredibly concerned about what happens in our district. I've worked very hard to improve the education system in our state, the healthcare system in our state, and whenever I read my bills, I am very prepared down at the Capitol. My opponents have voted for the cuts to education. One of them has, the other one's never served in office, but the other, Ms. Bolick, says that she's not going to increase funding for education, that she's going to lock our state's budget where it is today with a taxpayer bill of rights, that she believes in vouchers that drain our public schools of funding and transfer those funds to, in general, students that are going to our more expensive private schools in the state. So we are incredibly different as far as the political spectrum goes. I think I've represented the district well, and I bring a lot to the table with my background in economics, my having served on the school board, and the fact that I trained as an emergency medicine physician and have run a large emergency department and a business. So I take those skills to work every day to make Arizona a better place for all of our kids and all of our citizens so that they have jobs to go to, schools to attend where their kids can be successful, and parks and all the other things that we enjoy about Arizona. So I ask for your vote on November 4th.
Thank you. Mr. James Iannuzo.
I'm asking for your vote in November for a couple reasons. One is, I believe, well, as a libertarian, I'm not part of the argument of the red team versus the blue team. I think that's a bunch of nonsense, and what it causes real issues not to be discussed. A lot of times there's just a lot of yelling and shouting, and people are tired of the legislature. They say that's why the ratings are 10, 12, 15%, and every time, like the ballot proposition that's going to come up, which I think is 304, to raise the pay for the legislators, don't do it. I mean, they don't deserve it, and I don't think it'll get raised. The issue is who's the most consistent from a philosophical standpoint and a practical standpoint, who uses reason and ration to basically make decisions. I'm not wed to any particular position except for the two core principles that I said initially. If someone comes out and says there's a better solution to education, obviously you need to listen to that. You need to be open to it. I think the people you don't want to vote for is somebody who is wed to a position that, not based on principle, based on purely politics. But again, from a libertarian standpoint, and all libertarians are very similar with this, force can't be initiated and you own yourself. So I'm not going to be there being your nanny. On the other hand, I'm there to protect individual rights. So child abuse or elderly abuse, that's a violation of someone's rights. Government has a role there. And that's the things that I would be involved in. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Kelli Butler.
Well, thank you all again for being here. You know, I've been on the campaign trail now for 8 months, and I feel like I've worked really hard to talk to thousands of voters in our community. And the thing I hear most often from all people, from all parties, anywhere, is just a lack of, just a frustration at our legislature and the lack of vision and leadership that we've been seeing. And I agree, I share the frustration. You know, my incumbent opponent is not here tonight, and I'm glad that Mr. Iannuzo is here. But my incumbent opponent isn't here tonight to ask him a question, but he's been down there since 2006. And I want to ask him, you know, he's had a chance to implement his policies and show us his ideas. And really, where are the jobs? Where's the recovery? Where we're not doing well. And maybe it's time to change our leadership. You know, he's voted for all of the $4 billion we've cut from our schools. What's his plan to put that money back and to start restore those funds? He's not here to tell us. I think we need leaders who will answer to their constituents, and I definitely will do that. I have a vision for our state that includes world-class public schools and innovation and investment in our infrastructure especially. We need an environment that promotes diversity and, you know, allows for every effort be made to achieve equality whenever we can. And that's why I decided to run. I think that we need new leaders with a new vision, and I intend to work really hard, and I ask for your vote and your support. Thank you.
Thank you. And we thank you so much for participating in our forum. And we thank all of you who took the time to come and inform yourselves before voting. We encourage you to find out more about clean elections and the candidates running for office by visiting www.azcleanelections.gov. A link to the video of this debate will be posted on that website within 72 hours of the debate, as well as with other debates. We also ask that you fill out the debate evaluation form you received as you entered and return it to one of our volunteers. Your feedback is important to the Commission. Thank you all for coming tonight.